Hey everyone, we're back dealing with the Middle Ages. Um, so we have the Great Schism of 1054. This is when the Eastern and Western churches split. Um, Part of the issue was that the Western church was so busy with all of its dealings in Europe, dealing with the Gauls and dealing with the Germanic tribes and trying to organize itself and acquiring as much power as it could and as much riches as it could, that all of the concerns of the Eastern Church meaning like Turkey and the Middle East and Egypt, um, didn't seem as important. And so their concerns, the Eastern Church going, hey, could you answer some of our questions? We have some different ways of thinking here. Could we address these? And the West is like, leave us alone. Um, and so there was a split. The Eastern Church and the Western Church said, fine, we're just going to go our separate ways. And two of the major um, differences that existed was, first of all, that they wouldn't that the Western Church was going to deal with just as far as the leadership structure, have the bishops, and at the head of that was the Pope. The Eastern Church's organization was going to have 12 patriarchs, and those patriarchs were the ones that were going to run the Eastern Church, and that's the same as it is today. The second thing that's interesting here is the integration of celibacy in the Western Church. This is for the first time, only in 1054, where priests and bishops were seen as celibate, right? And so the Western Church chooses celibacy. Eastern Church says no worries. A priest can still get married. Now, why is this? What caused this? So back in the Middle Ages, if you were born, you were then supposed to take over what your father did. So if you had married clergy, you had priests and bishops and abbots and all of these important people who had sons, and they were to take over and become the bishop after their father or become the priest after their father. And what ended up happening was that was not a guarantee that these people were spiritually um, worthy of it. Uh, there were plenty of really bad priests and bad bishops. There was one bishop who became pope who was who got so far as being so bad that he dealt with bestiality. That was something that he got into, and that was a terribly embarrassing situation for the church at that time. So the Western Church decided if if we made the issue of celibacy a part of being a priest or a clergyman, then there wouldn't be that. The only people that would get into it would be people who are committed to the cause, who would be good, faithful people, and that would be the reason why they went ahead and chose that celibacy. Now, for today's church, that's not really a thing where I follow in my father's footsteps. I'm a teacher. My father was an airline mechanic, so obviously that didn't work out as far as a connection. So would it be the same reason today to maintain that celibacy? Is celibacy still necessary in the church today? There's some big questions about that. I'm not going to get into those right now. All right, so next we want to move to a terrible thing, the Crusades. The Crusades were, um, we want to focus on the Middle East. And in the Middle East, at that time, you had Muslims, you had Christians, and you had Jews all living together peacefully, doing their thing, getting along, all wearing basically the um, same kind of garb for their culture and uh, for the desert kind of hot climate, and they um, they went ahead and all of a sudden the Turks attack, and this peaceful coexistence between the Muslims, Christians, and the Jews who are fighting these Turks is going badly. And the Christians say, like, well, hey, we could send word back to Rome, and they would give us help. And so that was a good idea. And so they sent word to Rome, hey, could you help? So the first Crusaders came in an attempt to try to help. What they forgot to do is they forgot to bring translators. So these noble crusaders in the first crusade came across, and they were looking to help out. And what they ended up doing was attacking anybody who didn't look like them, which basically was everyone. And so the first crusaders did not help against the battle with the Turks, and they ended up just killing Christians and Jews and Muslims alike. Um, so that was terrible, terrible, terrible experience. So these massacres began, and when word got back to Rome, the vast resources and that there were Muslims there in the Holy Land um, that were in charge of places that were seen as holy to the Christian people, the Pope decided that he could use this fight against the Muslims as a way to actually to acquire resources and money and spices and linen and all kinds of stuff that was really cool to have. He could use this as a holy war to get what he wanted, and this is how the Crusades proceeded. So here you have, on one side you had the Middle Eastern Muslims, Christians, and Jews fighting the Turks, and now they have to turn around and they have to fight the the Christians that are coming from Rome as well, and that doesn't go well. Now they eventually defeat the Turks, but the bigger problem then is the Christians that are coming in these crusaders, and so now primarily the Muslims have to fight them back, and this is how the Crusades kind of progressed, and it's a terrible shame. Um, so suddenly now, instead of it being about this vast resources, um, it became about reclaiming the Holy Land from the Muslims. Now, so in the end, what happens is that the money dries up for the Crusades, and the Muslims are able to maintain and hang on. Um, so then the we move into the terrible aspect of the Black Plague. Now, the Black Plague kills about half of the priests in Europe and a third of all the people of Europe. People, in an attempt to needing jobs, they have to kind of move to the cities. The clergy were the only educated people, and half of them were gone. So they needed to be replaced by the laity. And so this is where universities are developed, right? Like specifically, University of Paris was a prominent one and one of the first. Now the poop the oh and so Pope moves into this political position of great power, and the threat of hell was a power that not even foreign kings would test. And so the Pope had all this power, and the Renaissance um, really was sponsored by the church. We'll go on from there.